After multiple delays, Square Enix's next big game is almost here. Forspoken is the first title to come from the development team that made Final Fantasy XV, a game that came out back in 2016. I spent around 5 hours testing an early build of the game, working my way through several of the first chapters as I explored my way through the mythical lands of Athia, playing as Frey, the protagonist, who's accompanied by a sassy British accented bangle called Cuff. Almost immediately, they have to fight off mutated monsters and zombies and figure out how to get back home, probably while saving the world on the way. While you probably already know the magical attacks in Forspoken are spectacular, it was my one-on-one battle with Sylar, the Tantor of Strength, that made the biggest impression during my preview session, and the best showcase for this game. But what are the Tantors? Well, there are a handful of sorceresses that rule the medieval but shattered land of Athia. Yes, be prepared for a barrage of lore and encyclopedic entries on the history, flora and fauna of this land. But hey, at least I could look up everything in the menu if I ever got lost. The protagonist Frey is just as new to this world as you, and she loves to drop the F-bomb and assorted swear words at pretty much every opportunity.
The f*** is up with the animals here? You tell me that now? Shit!
Now, I'm not a prude, it just feels like diminishing returns and a little immature. Hopefully all that angst tapers off later in the game. Athia itself is a mix of natural beauty, paranormal detritus, and towns, buildings and structures from when the world hadn't been turned upside down by something that Frey calls the Break. And it's easy to see why she calls it that. This world is broken. Animals and people have been transformed into fearsome beasts and zombies. Your first interaction with the locals, after hiding from a dragon, is some sort of dog bear thing with teeth running from top to bottom. There's some kind of connection between your magical bangle, Cuff, the aforementioned Tantor, a war, and, well, whatever went wrong with, the entire world. Cuff itself isn't only around for the often shoehorned narrative exposition. It offers a degree of defense. Your health bar comes from the bangle, not Frey herself, and also imbues the character with an array of plant and earth-based magical spells right from the start. These loosely translate to support spells through the plant tree and attack spells through the earth tree. Now, it's the attack spells that are the true showstoppers, cinematic elemental attacks that are usually ranged. There's a skill tree to unlock upgraded spells as well as more attack options. Some of those earth spells can deal consistent damage, like magical machine guns, while others will deal charged up burst damage, or even create an earthen shield that will counter some physical attacks. If you're facing a particularly tough foe, effective use of your spells and defensive techniques will build up a special surge magic meter. Once that's full, you can unleash a devastating attack that can hit and hopefully kill multiple enemies. While some of the plant-based support skills are set and forget, like a flower turret, others require a bit more strategy. You can hit an enemy with a slow burn seed attack to gradually seep their strength, which is useful on slower, high defense enemies. There's also a Leech Vine attack that will lash out in a wide arc, returning health depending on how much damage it does. This means if you use it against multiple enemies, you'll get a lot more health in return. Compared to the Earth attack skills, these all come with a pretty substantial cooldown, so you'll have to use them all strategically. Speaking for myself, my timing and skill definitely improved as I played the game. Forspoken will even grade your battle skills, sort of like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta. Now at the start, with a limited skill and limited fight options, I struggled to get anything better than a C rank. But at the closing moments of my preview, I was occasionally even hitting star rank, which, as far as I know, is the top rank. These grades take into account how long fights took, the amount of damage taken, damage dished out, and the creative range of attacks used. You'll get bonus points for a surprise attack, among other things. Now, if I just gunned down enemies from afar, it was not going to get a good grade. Now, why should you care how good you are in the battles? Well, it's rewarded by more loot. At the top levels, you'll get double experience points and pretty much double the loot, important when you're trying to upgrade your character and make Frey more powerful. And as you might expect from an action RPG, there are all kinds of ways to power up Frey. Beyond leveling up and expanding the spell repertoire, there are equipment slots for both a necklace accessory and cloak. These can both be upgraded once you find the right resources, and also even customized with boons to improve health, defense and attack. I was even able to automate healing with one accessory I found during my playthrough. I could also customize Frey's nails to beef up certain spell families, helping magic to recharge faster or simply deal more damage. Yes please to both. Around the same time as Frey learns she can hurl boulders and summon vines, she's also gifted with magical parkour skills, which are a mix of parkour, wall climbing, and I'd say ice skating. This really helps get across the vast landscapes at a flare clip. It's like having a horse without, well, having a horse. These traversal skills are sewn into the fights too. While dodging can be a little too forgiving, sometimes Frey will sometimes arc and leap off air to avoid attacks ad infinitum. But combining these magical dodges and dashes with earth spells and vine attacks will amp up the power of some of these moves. Timing, however, is crucial. The battle system did throw up some difficulty spikes. At one point, before facing off with the aforementioned sorceress Sylar, I found myself being repeatedly humbled, well, killed, by a herd of demon goats. Was I underleveled? Possibly. Did I lack accessories and equipment upgrades? Definitely. But it was a choke point where the fights seemed suddenly harder than everything that came before it, including a few boss fights. In fact, it was harder for me than the eventual showdown with the Tanta of Strength. The locking system seemed a little bit temperamental. To lock on to an enemy, you have to press the R3 stick, which is not a great button in the midst of a frantic battle. Fortunately, there is still time for Square Enix to fix and finesse this. This is still a preview, and the game doesn't come out for a month. Hopefully they'll have time to fix some of the few graphical hiccups I saw during my time with the game as well. Things like missing objects in cutscenes and even missing magical spells. So while groups are often an issue, the controls really come together well in the bigger one-on-one battles. Once I'd made it to the throne of the fire sword wielding Sylar, I had to swap around my spells and keep my distance. Sylar could soak up plenty of damage and was incredibly lethal up close. Once Frey was able to whittle down her health enough, she was joined by a platoon of her soldiers. Ugh, a group battle. And I went through another 2 levels of fury. Without giving everything away, eventually Frey's left in a fiery battleground, trying to dodge molten floors and sword attacks while flinging her own earth spells and trying to restrain the raging boss with vine sorcery. It felt like the right balance of skill and cinematic magical warfare, and most importantly, fun. Sylar comes across as an off-kilter monster, making it easy to want to beat her. Eventually, I prevailed and received the fire-based spells of Sylar for myself, creating an entirely new skill tree of spells and charms centered around strength and, of course, fire. Now, if Frey is going to pick up several more skill trees from the other 3 Tantas, knowingly referenced in wall paintings ahead of that confrontation, that's going to mean a lot of spells and a lot of upgrades. Square Enix itself has uploaded so many videos teasing Forspoken's magical attacks and even the magical parkour, and I get why it whets our appetites. We're talking about fantastical lightning storms or giant exploding orbs of water that can trap your enemies. It all looks great, but is there such a thing as too many magic spells? How will all of these interplay with each other? We'll have to wait and see. Forspoken will launch on PlayStation 5 and PC on January 24th, 2023. As always, click down below to subscribe and get all the very latest gaming news from Engadget, and make sure to read our full story over at engadget.com. Thanks for watching.